Hey Coastal, I hope you guys are having a great week so far. We're praying for you. Hope you guys are doing well. We're continuing to pray for all of those who have been directly affected or even indirectly affected from this COVID-19 virus. It is horrible. It's very, very sad to see the number of people who have passed away from this virus. But it's also very encouraging to see the numbers of people, the volumes of people that are recovering very well from the virus. And if this situation has done anything for us at all, it's given us at least some new vocabulary that we probably never would have used before. Social distancing, slow the spread, flatten the curve, shelter in place, self-quarantine, mitigation. That's a fun word, mitigation, PPE, PPP. Just think, in 20 years, you can be talking to your buddies outside in the backyard, and you can talk about the good old days of mitigation, and your teenager is going to look at you like you're speaking a different language. Well, I guess they're already doing that these days. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, Pastor Greg, when are we going to be able to meet together again? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I wish I did. But I do know that we are one day closer. We're going to be following the phase 1, the phase 2, and the phase 3 protocols that the president and that our governor have set. And if all goes according to plan, best case scenario, it is slightly possible that we could do some kind of a service with a limited number of people on Memorial Day weekend Sunday. That's what we're hoping for, but we're watching the data, we're watching all the updates, and we'll just keep you very informed about how things are going. Whoever thought that when we kicked off 2020 with such momentum and enthusiasm that less than 3 months later we would be totally shut down, using words like I mentioned earlier, and wondering, are we ever going to be able to gather again in person? This has shaken many people off of their foundation, truly. Those that have no spiritual foundation at all, they're really, really struggling to try to find something solid to be able to stand on. And even those who are strong believers, a lot of them are struggling to keep a strong faith during these times. We have good days and we have bad days, don't we? All of us do. I want to share a few thoughts with you this morning on Psalm 62. And I want to direct you to the place where you can have a very, very secure trust in your foundation. You can be sure that your foundation will stand the toughest of times, even through this COVID-19 season that we're in. Did you ever have like a whoopee or a blankie, a pillow, a stuffed animal, a baby doll, or something like that when you were a really young child that you just had to have with you? You ever have something like that? It was like your safety net, your comfort. When you had it with you, everything was fine. If you didn't have it with you, everything was not fine. And when you were missing that thing, whatever it was, when you were missing it, it made you feel like everything was falling apart. When you had it with you, you were at peace. But when you didn't have it, your peace fell to pieces. But in Psalm 62, I want you to find that blanket of peace and protection. You find the refuge that all of us need. In Psalm 62, King David pens these words, verse 1. He said, I waited quietly before God, for my victory comes from Him. I think it's very interesting how he started that. I wait quietly before God. Right off the bat here, we have an issue with this because many of us are not waiting quietly. I mean, we're crying out to God every day. We're like, God, what's going on? Why is this happening? All of these cries out to God. And really, this doesn't mean that David wasn't praying to God. It doesn't mean that he was completely silent and not even asking God for wisdom. It just means that he was settled. That word for quiet in the Hebrew in that verse means his heart was settled that God's got this. God's got a plan, and he's trusting in Him. He's trusting God in the storm. He's at peace that God is going to bring the victory someday, somehow. Verse 2, then he says this. He said, He alone, God alone, is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, and I will never be shaken. I love that. I love that. He says, God alone is my rock. God alone. He's my rock, my fortress, my blanket, my pillow, my would-be, my foundation, my strength. God alone. Not God plus anything else. Not God plus my smarts, or not God plus my seminary degree. Not God plus my positive mental attitude, but God alone. And that is powerful. That is powerful. We all need some God alone kind of thinking today, like David had. A God alone mindset, a God alone lens on the camera of my heart and on the camera of my emotions. God alone. He continues in verse 3. You kind of see what he's going through here. He says, so many enemies against one man, all of them trying to kill me. To them, I'm just a broken down wall or a tottering fence. They plan to topple me from my high position. They delight in telling lies about me. They praise me to my face, but they curse me in their hearts. It's like David saying, all the news is bad. All the news is negative. It's depressing. It's downright demoralizing, and it's meant to bring me down. Boy, does that sound familiar? I mean, Suzanne and I we were watching the news the other day. We're like, just turn it off. Turn it off. I think they all want to keep us in a negative mindset. It's enough to make each of us feel like we're victims. And David here, I want you to watch how in these next verses he turns from feeling like a victim to living in victory. Verse 5, he said, let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken. You know what he's doing? He's repeating the same thing he proclaimed in the first two verses. I think he's trying to tell us something. I think he's trying to get us to understand this point. The word not be shaken there is interesting. It means to not be moved from the foundation of trust in God. Not being moved. It doesn't mean that we haven't been tempted to move or like we feel kind of uneasy sometimes. It's not talking about that. You ever been shaken during these COVID-19 shutdown days? Yeah, we feel a little shaken, but we're not going to be moved. We're not going to be moved. Verse 7, he said, my victory and honor comes from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. Man, what a great imagery that we can grasp in these verses of Psalm 62. God is our salvation. He is our victor. He is our refuge. He is our rock. And when we put our hope in Him, we will not be moved off that foundation of truth. We will not. Before I read you the last verse, I want to encourage you to do something. One of the things that can help us remain anchored to the fortress that is God is getting our priorities in the right order. In times like we're living, we actually start realizing that a lot of things that we thought were really important aren't so much. And we're also realizing that things that we thought were not really important are very, very important and vital to our life. Tim Sanders, years ago, was a big executive with Yahoo, and he had a very interesting concept about priorities. He said to take all of the things in your life and all those things that you consider important and put them in three categories: glass, metal, and rubber. Glass, metal, and rubber. He said the things in the rubber category are the things that if we drop them, they're going to bounce back. No harm, no foul. If you missed the last episode of a Netflix series, really no big deal. You're not gonna lose sleep over that. You're not gonna worry about it for months. If you miss watching the big game because you were late from a meeting and you've been looking forward to seeing this game, of course now we're not even seeing any games, we're seeing reruns of games. But none of the things in the rubber category are going to cause a major blow to your marriage. They're not going to cause a major blow to your spiritual life or your family relationships. But the things in the metal category are a little different. When we drop those, they make a lot of noise. But you can recover from those drops. For instance, if you missed a couple of debit card transactions when you were out shopping and you forgot to check your bank balance and then you get an overdraft fee. Man, that stinks, doesn't it? But you can recover from that. Not a problem. You miss a meeting at work and you get reprimanded. Okay, that's bad, but you can recover from that too. But the things in the glass category are completely different. Those are the things that if dropped, they shatter to pieces. They shattered to 1,000 pieces, and they will likely never be the same again. You can't just glue it back together. The cracks are always going to show. It may not even hold water. It may leak. Mr. Sanders said this. He said, the consequences of this brokenness will forever affect how the glass is used. I see this advice as a key to being able to weather the storms of life and to still remain safe in the fortress of God. In times like these, we may have some extra time on our hands. And we may find ourselves a little shaken. We realize our fortress is something other than God alone. We were resting on something else. Then just maybe, it might be a good idea for us to review the pecking order of our priorities. To look at the list and see what we've put some things in the rubber or metal category that really are in the glass category. We've put some things in the glass category that really are just rubber category. God told us in Colossians 3:2, set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. Jesus said in Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things are going to be added to you. Mark 8:36, Jesus said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? Let me give you verse 8 of Psalm 62 and we're done. I want to give this to you as a prayer. I want to give this as a prayer over you today. Verse 8. It says, O my people, trust in Him at all times. Pour out your heart to Him, for God is our refuge. God alone.